Welcome to today's historical deep dive into the relentless, unvarnished truth of medieval survival. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. Forget the shining knights and courtly love, the grand castles and stained glass windows, at least for now. For most people, in most places, across these shadowed centuries, life was lived on a knife's edge. A daily negotiation with forces seen and unseen, where the line between life and death was as thin as winter ice. This is a journey not through the halls of power, but into the dirt, the fear, the bone-deep weariness of ordinary souls clinging to existence. It's a story whispered in smoky hovels, sung in fields under an indifferent sun, and prayed in silent, terrified darkness. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know in bringing these lost worlds to light. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Would you be a farmer battling the earth? A craftswoman trading your skill for survival? A humble healer trusted by the village? Or something else entirely? There's no right answer, just an honest reflection on what life demanded. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. You wake not to the chirping of birds or the gentle hum of machinery, but to the insistent, damp chill that has seeped into your very bones overnight. Your pallet is straw laid directly on the earth floor of your hovel, shared with the family, perhaps a few chickens huddled for warmth, creatures of vital, if noisy, utility. The small fire, carefully banked last night with the precious fuel gathered piece by painful piece, has long surrendered to the cold, leaving only a pile of gray ash and a faint smoky smell that clings to everything. Your rough wool tunic, the wattle and daub walls, your hair, your very breath. An infant cries somewhere in the darkness beside you, a thin wail of cold and hunger. An older child coughs a dry, rattling sound that has plagued the household since the autumn rains turned the world to mud. Your own limbs ache with a dull, persistent throb, a constant companion earned through years of back-breaking labor in the fields, hauling, stooping, lifting until dusk. There is no privacy here, only unavoidable proximity. No comfort as we understand it, only the temporary absence of outright agony. This crushing physical reality is the baseline of your existence. Before thought, before prayer, before purpose, there is this body, cold, damp, hungry, aching. It is a state of being that demands immediate action, for inaction is swift death. You grope in the dark for the flint and tinder kept carefully dry, the first small battle of the day, coaxing life back into the hearth against the oppressive weight of the cold, and the knowledge that whatever warmth you gain will soon dissipate, requiring endless fuel and effort. This primal struggle for warmth against a world designed to steal it defines much of your day. It is a constant, low-level war fought with scarce resources and weary hands, a daily reminder of your vulnerability and the narrow margin of survival in this time. It's a surprising insight, perhaps, to realize just how much sheer physical effort went into simply not being cold. You are not just waking to a new day. You are waking to the relentless truth of your own fragile, dependent body in a world that offers little softness, a world where even the air attempts to draw the heat from your skin. This is the ancient contract. Give everything, just to exist for one more turn of the sun. Ask yourself, would you have the simple animal tenacity required to win that first small battle against the cold, day after day, year after year? The fire is out, a heap of gray ash where warmth resided hours ago. Beside you, your youngest coughs. Again, a dry rasp that tears at the fragile silence of the pre-dawn dark. The air inside the small cottage is cold, damp, carrying the faint, permanent smell of smoke, sweat, and unwashed wool. It is time to break the night's fast. This is not a meal of variety or abundance. It is survival, stark and simple. Your hands, rough and calloused, reach for the loaf of dark, coarse bread, baked days ago. It is hard, dense, a weight in your palm. You break off a chunk, the crumb heavy, almost gray. You chew it quickly, mouth working hard against its resistance. There is often grit within, tiny fragments of millstone that escape the sifter, scraping against your teeth. The texture is rough against your palate, a reminder of the earth from which the grain was torn. Perhaps, if fortune has smiled faintly upon you, there is a small, precious piece of dried cheese, hard as stone, offering a fleeting intensity of flavor. Or perhaps just a raw onion, bitter and sharp, a brutal cleanse for the morning mouth. You wash it down with weak ale, safer than the uncertain water from the nearby stream, or just water if the brew is finished. You eat not for pleasure, not for delight, but for the temporary cessation of the hunger pangs that are already beginning to assert themselves, a low thrumming beneath your ribs. You eat for the small, necessary store of energy this meager sustenance provides, energy that will be needed for the back-breaking work ahead. Meat is a rare luxury, a festival treat perhaps, ifted by the Lord or the Church, or the dangerous prize of successful poaching in the forbidden woods. A wrong step there, a watchful eye, and the cost is limbs or life itself. Vegetables come seasonally from your small garden plot. Cabbages in the autumn, leeks in the spring, root vegetables like parsnips or turnips through the winter, stored in damp earth. Often they are boiled plain, their flavors muted by repetition. Porridge, made from grains like oats or barley, is another staple, a filling but often monotonous gruel. This simple, repetitive diet is often lacking. Scurvy is a whisper many understand, though they know not its name. Illnesses born of poor nutrition are common companions. Hunger is not just the absence of food. It is a constant, nagging presence, a low-grade pain that underscores every task, every thought, from dawn until the moment exhaustion forces you into uneasy sleep. The sheer dominance of food scarcity and the immense effort required to secure enough calories to survive the day, let alone the year, becomes the primary, overwhelming objective of existence. This focus narrows the world immeasurably. Your dreams are not of fame or distant lands or grand achievements. Your dreams are achingly simple, achingly vital, a good harvest free from blight, a healthy cow giving milk, a winter without the gnawing terror of starvation. It strips away the complexities we assume are fundamental to being human, revealing the primal driving force, the need for basic sustenance. In our world of overflowing supermarkets, where food is often discarded thoughtlessly, where supplements fill any perceived nutritional gap, we have almost entirely lost this visceral, primal connection to food as a direct result of our physical labor and the terrifying whims of nature: frost, flood, pestilence. Could we even imagine a life where simply getting enough to eat requires every ounce of your energy, every desperate prayer to Saint Isidore for a good harvest? Where the difference between a nagging hunger and outright starvation is just one failed crop. Ask yourself, is the abundance we now possess a gift they could never have comprehended? Or does it mask a different kind of scarcity, a disconnection from the very earth that sustained them through centuries of quiet struggle? You rise before the sun, the air biting at your exposed skin. Every joint protests the movement, a symphony of aches and stiffness you've known since childhood. This is the body's morning greeting. Stepping outside the low door of your hovel isn't just stepping into the day. It's stepping into the field, your true, vast, unyielding workplace. The earth waits, a silent, demanding partner. The work is relentless. You hitch the oxen to the heavy wooden plow, its weight a dead anchor in the soil. You lean into it, muscles screaming, breath coming in ragged gasps as the furrows slowly turn. Or perhaps you are sowing, hand scattering precious seed across the rough ground. Hours bent double, back locked in a permanent curve. Weeding means endless hours on your knees, fingers tearing at resistant roots. Harvest time is a frantic race against the weather, swinging a sickle until blisters bloom on your hands and your arms feel like lead. The sun bakes you. Rain chills you to the bone. There is no clock but the sky, no break but collapse. Your body isn't simply yours in the way we understand it. It is, in a very real sense, a tool, a communal asset. Its value is measured in its capacity for work, how much ground you can plow, how much grain you can harvest, how many loads you can carry. Chronic pain isn't an illness. It's a condition of existence, as common as breath. Arthritis twists fingers, backs seize up, knees give out. A broken bone that heals crookedly isn't a temporary setback. It's a permanent downgrade in your most essential machine. There are no healers for these daily degradations, save for prayer, desperate poultices, or the stoic acceptance of what is. The irony? This body, so vital, so constantly used, is also utterly disposable once its capacity fails. This creates a profound, almost brutal connection to the physical world. You learn the language of your limits, the signs of impending failure. But your self-worth is tied directly to your physical contribution to the village's survival. The Lord's demands. It fosters a brutal disregard for comfort, for long-term health that we can barely fathom. We chase fitness, wellness, ergonomic perfection, seeking to avoid discomfort and maximize personal longevity. The medieval peasant pursued sheer, gritty resilience, accepting pain as the price of life itself, because group survival depended on individual endurance. Ask yourself, how much of our modern identity is built on the avoidance of physical hardship that was for them the absolute baseline of human reality? What does our obsession with comfort tell us about how far we perceive ourselves to be from the raw, demanding soil they worked with their very bones? The air is cold, damp. No chime of a clock announces the hour. It is simply less dark than it was before. The rooster crows, or perhaps the cow bellows near the lean-to, and that is your signal. Dawn is breaking. You rise from the straw pallet, movements stiff with yesterday's ache. The fire in the hearth, if banked coals survived the night, is coaxed back to life, a fragile pulse against the retreating blackness. There is no choice about the start of your day. The sun dictates it, a celestial bell tolling the hour of labor. Out into the field you go, the dew soaking your rough shoes, the mist clinging to the low ground like a shroud. The work begins with the light, relentless, demanding. Your back bends over the furrow, your hands calloused on the hoe or the scythe. Time is not measured in minutes or hours, but in the shifting angle of the sun, in the length of the shadows. A brief pause midday, a crust of bread, perhaps some cheese or dried meat if you are lucky, eaten quickly, still in the field, watching the sun climb higher before its inevitable descent. There is no lunch break in the modern sense, only a momentary ceasefire in the war against the weeds, the stone, the unyielding soil. The light begins to fade. Long before true darkness falls, the air cools. Your body protests, but the sun's withdrawal is the only accepted end to the day's toil. You trudge back, bone-weary, under a sky bleeding orange and violet. Inside your dwelling, the only light is the hearth fire, casting dancing, unreliable shadows. A smoky, sputtering rushlight, a dried reed dipped in fat, might be lit for a few moments, offering a meager, expensive glow insufficient for reading, sewing, or any task. You know the phases of the moon, the subtle shifts in the wind, the precise moment the sun dips below the horizon at different times of the year, with an intimacy that feels almost religious. You have to. Your survival depends on reading these ancient signs. But this connection comes at a cost. In the depths of winter, your productive day is brutally short, a frantic scramble against the encroaching night and the gnawing hunger it brings. In summer, the days stretch endlessly, an exhausting marathon of labor under the relentless sun. There is no beating the clock, no working late to catch up. There is only working within the absolute limit imposed by available light. This fostered a patience born of necessity, perhaps a different understanding of productivity, measured not in abstract hours, but in the tangible completion of tasks made possible by the grace of the sun. We are now slaves to artificial minutes and seconds, dividing our lives into neat, quantifiable units detached from the turning world outside our windows. Ask yourself, have we gained efficiency, or merely traded the tyranny of the sun for the invisible chains of the clock, losing a deeper, instinctual connection to the world around us in the process? You wake in darkness. The fire is out, a dying ember glowing faintly in the central hearth. Beside you, your youngest coughs, again, the sound rattling in their small chest like loose stones. There are others here too, a grandmother, her breath thin and reedy. Your spouse, pressed against you for warmth. Perhaps a sibling, their own family nested close by. The air is thick, damp, smelling of last night's cooking, unwashed bodies, and the ever-present acrid bite of soot. This is your home, not a house in the modern sense, carved into private rooms, but a single enclosed space where life unfolds in a constant, unavoidable proximity. The walls are likely daub and wattle, the roof thick thatch. Excellent insulation, yes, but also a haven for lice, fleas, and mice that scurry just above your head. The floor is packed earth, uneven and cold against bare feet, offering little barrier to the damp that seeps up from the ground after rain. The smoke from the hearth, necessary for cooking and warmth, has no chimney, only a hole in the roof or a gradual seep through the thatch. It stings your eyes, coats the rough-hewn beams, and everything within the space in a permanent layer of black grime. Privacy is not a concept. It is a luxury unimaginable, perhaps even undesirable. Here, within these few walls, everything happens. The struggle to stay warm, the preparation of meager meals, the whispered prayers before sleep, the raw, agonizing pain of childbirth, the final, rattling breaths of the dying. This constant, shared existence, while physically challenging and utterly devoid of personal space, forged bonds sharper and tougher than steel. Survival was not an individual endeavor. It was a collective one. Every person under this shared roof was a vital cog in the machine of existence. The scrawny 10-year-old wasn't just a child. They were the one who watched the chickens, gathered firewood, helped carry water. The frail, elderly grandparent wasn't a burden. They were the keeper of family history, the one who could mend fishing nets or spin wool while others toiled in the fields, their quiet labor essential to the family's meager prosperity. There was a brutal, beautiful efficiency to it. Everyone had a role. Everyone contributed according to their capacity. Your identity wasn't about what you alone achieved or desired. It was inextricably woven into the fabric of your family's survival. The idea of striking out on your own, of leaving the hearth and the shared fate to find personal independence, would have been seen as suicidal, a betrayal of the unit that was your only shield against the harsh world. There's a quiet irony in this. While outside threats, famine, plague, invaders, loomed large, some of the most intimate dangers were born within these very walls. A coughing child could mean sickness spreading through the entire family. A single spark from the hearth could devour the thatched roof and everything inside in minutes. The very closeness that offered protection also harbored vulnerability. Superstitions arose not just from external mysteries, but from the uncontrollable realities of their immediate environment. Was it a draft from a chink in the wall that brought the fever, or a mischievous spirit lurking in the smoky corners? A prayer whispered here feels different than one offered in the vastness of the church. It's a desperate plea within a tiny, smoky universe for protection from unseen forces that might share your air. Reflect on this shared roof, this shared fate. We measure our success, our freedom, by the distance we put between ourselves and others. The separate rooms, the separate homes, the ability to move out and forge a life independent of our family's daily rhythms. What have we gained in this pursuit of what essential human need, met by necessity under that smoky roof, do we now search for in a world of separate boxes? The ache in your back is a constant companion, born from someone else's earth. You do not own this field you are tilling. The rough soil beneath your calloused hands, the grain you coax from it with sweat and hope, it all belongs to the Lord. His manor house sits distant, a stone reminder of a power you feel in your bones every waking hour. This is the weight of feudalism, a yoke unseen but undeniably present. Your very existence is bound by his authority, written not on paper you cannot read, but in the demands whispered by the bailiff or shouted by the steward. Rent is due, not in silver you rarely touch, but in sacks of grain harvested from your meager plot, in the fattest hen from your small flock, in eggs gathered with care. But more than goods, you owe labor. Days pulled from your own struggle for survival, spent working his fields, planting his seed, reaping his harvest, before you can ever turn to your own hungry patch. It feels like a slow bleeding of your life force, channeled away to feed another's plenty. Even the simple acts of survival are taxed. You must carry your precious grain to the Lord's mill, waiting your turn behind others, paying a toll of flour for the privilege of grinding what you grew. Your wife's bread must be baked in the Lord's communal oven, another small fee claimed by his representatives. It's not just about the land. It's about every single step in the chain of sustenance. His reach is everywhere, a shadow over your daily bread, a hand in your meager pot. His word, delivered through his men, is the only law that truly matters here. Disputes are settled by him, punishments meted out swiftly and harshly. A misplaced furrow, a suspicion of poaching a rabbit from his woods, a delayed payment of chickens, any transgression can mean a beating, the seizure of your tools, or the terrifying threat of eviction. To be cast from the land is a death sentence in this world. So you comply. You bow low. You hide a few handfuls of grain only when absolutely necessary. You pray no one notices the snare you set, far in the woods, not for a deer, but for a desperate pigeon. The insight here is the pervasive, quiet oppression. Your life, your energy, the fruits of your... You are bound to the land that does not feed you enough, subject to the whims of a man whose power is absolute within your small universe. It's a constant, low-level tension, a negotiation between your family's hunger and the Lord's insatiable demands. The grain you hide from the tithe collector isn't greed. It's an act of rebellion against a system designed to extract every last ounce of your production. Reflect on this. We complain about taxes, about regulations that feel arbitrary or burdensome. But imagine a system where your landlord didn't just own your dwelling, but literally owned the ground you needed to farm to eat, and claimed a vast percentage of everything you produced, backed by the very real threat of violence or starvation if you refused. Does this make the modern concept of personal property rights, however flawed, seem like a precious freedom? Or does it highlight a chilling continuity, that external powers, whether lords or states or corporations, still claim a significant portion of our labor and its fruits, just in different, perhaps more palatable, forms? The air in the common room is thick with the smell of wood smoke, stale ale, and damp wool. Rain drums a steady rhythm on the thatched roof overhead. You are squeezed onto a bench beside your neighbor, Elara, whose elbow jabs you every time she laughs. Across the room, old Thomas is nursing a bruised eye, the result of a drunken brawl with a fellow villager over the price of a single hen. This is not just a place to drink. It is the village hearth, the unofficial court, the beating heart of your world outside your own four walls. You live not just within the narrow confines of your family hut, but within the wide, encompassing embrace, and sometimes chokehold, of your village. This community is not a choice. It is the very ground you stand on, essential for survival in ways modern minds struggle to grasp. When the fever takes hold of your youngest, it is not a doctor who comes, but the old woman down the lane, with her poultices and whispered charms. When the planting season arrives, or the harvest needs to be brought in before the rains ruin everything, hands you know as well as your own reach out to help. Tools are shared, burdens eased through collective effort. Joy, too, is amplified. A wedding feast sees the whole village singing off-key and dancing until dawn. Saints' days are marked by communal prayer and perhaps a rare, precious taste of meat. The small, sturdy church is more than a house of worship. It is the center of gravity, where births, deaths, and marriages are recorded, where news is shared before the sermon, where the cycle of the year and the rhythm of life are sanctified. But the village is also 1,000 watchful eyes, a powerful, inescapable force of social control. There is no anonymity here, none. Everyone knows everyone else's business, who is thriving, who is struggling, whose daughter is perhaps too friendly with the new blacksmith. Gossip, like a rampant weed, twists through every conversation, every shared meal, every trip to the well. Deviance from established norms, whether it's neglecting your field, wearing clothes deemed too fine for your station, questioning the priest, or simply having an unusual habit, is noted instantly. It is the subtle shift in conversation when you approach, the sudden silence, the pointed glance. Sanction often comes not from formal law, which is distant and expensive, but from constant, low-grade pressure. The cold shoulder at the market, the reluctance to lend a vital tool, the rumors that follow you like a shadow. Your reputation is not an abstract concept. It is your currency, your shield. It is built painstakingly, day by day, through constant interaction, through fulfilling your obligations, through adherence to unwritten rules understood by everyone. Break faith with the community, fail to help a neighbor in need, be caught stealing, commit adultery, and that reputation can crumble overnight. The insight here is the profound dual nature of this medieval community. A vital, irreplaceable support network that could literally mean the difference between life and death in harsh times, and a deeply restrictive social structure that left almost no room for individual expression or privacy as we understand it. Your identity was not something you crafted alone. It was forged within the crucible of the group, polished and policed by everyone around you. Exclusion from the village could be a death sentence, both socially and literally. Imagine being cast out, with nowhere to go, no one to turn to for help, for warmth, for food, for protection. Like a lonely, vulnerable sheep driven from the flock, you are exposed to all the wolves of the world. We, in our time, prize individual autonomy above almost all else, and the ability to disappear into anonymity in a bustling city or online. Yet, we often lament feelings of isolation, loneliness, and a profound lack of belonging. Was the intense, sometimes suffocating, interconnectedness of the medieval village, where everyone knew you, for better or worse, where your life was woven inextricably with dozens of others, a price worth paying for that guaranteed sense of belonging, that constant, if intrusive, mutual support? Or was the heavy cost of constant surveillance and lack of personal freedom too high a price? What do we lose, truly, when community becomes an optional add-on to life, rather than its absolute, non-negotiable foundation? This dense web of lives wasn't just about survival, it was the very fabric of existence, and pulling at one thread could unravel the whole thing. Welcome to today's historical deep dive into the world of sleepy history, where we don't just tell you history, we invite you to live it. You wake in darkness. The fire is out. Beside you, your youngest coughs. Again. The straw rustles as a rat scurries across the floor. This is your reality. There are no gentle mornings, no soft beds, no certainty beyond the biting cold and the gnawing hunger. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. A time not of shining knights and grand castles for most, but of mud, toil, faith, and pervasive fear. Yet within this stark landscape, ordinary people didn't just survive. They endured. They loved. They laughed. They found beauty. And they built the foundations of a world they would never see prosper. Forget the myths. This is the reality. This is the daily struggle, the quiet dignity, the surprising resilience of lives lived on the edge of survival, under skies that felt both immense and terrifyingly small. This journey isn't about dates and kings. It's about the texture of existence, the weight of a superstition, the taste of hardtack, the smell of the unwashed world, and the silent language of survival. It's about understanding why they believed what they believed, why they did what they did, and what their silent legacy means for us today. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Bringing these lost worlds to life for more people. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Would you be a farmer, watching the sky for ruin? A merchant, navigating dangerous roads? A monk, seeking solace in stone? Or perhaps a wise woman, whispering forgotten remedies? Think on it. Let's begin, and live the life they never got to finish. Please note, sections 2 through 7 are not included in the provided input, and therefore cannot be generated. The script now transitions directly to Section 8. Section 8, Faith and Fear, the Spiritual Landscape. The church bell tolls a resonant iron voice cutting through the damp morning air. It calls you not just to prayer, but to the very pulse of your existence. The world around you is alive, teeming not just with trees and rivers, but with unseen forces locked in an eternal cosmic struggle. God is not distant. He is a powerful, omnipresent figure, a stern Father and a merciful Lord, capable of dispensing both boundless grace and terrifying punishment. His gaze is upon you always. But God is not alone in this spiritual landscape. The devil is real. You know this with absolute certainty. He walks the earth, his legions of demons whispered about in hushed tones, actively seeking to tempt, to ensnare, to damn your immortal soul. They lurk in shadows. They whisper doubts in your ear. They orchestrate misfortune, a sudden illness, a failed harvest, a neighbor's strange behavior. All could be the work of these malevolent forces. Your life is a constant battlefield for your soul. In this precarious existence, you are not without allies. Saints, the heroes of faith, offer intercession. You light a candle before the image of St. Jude, patron of lost causes, praying for your sick child. You carry a small worn token blessed in the name of St. Christopher for safe travel, even if it's just to the next village. Relics, a fragment of bone, a sliver of wood from a cross, hold tangible power, conduits of divine grace and protection. People travel vast distances, enduring hardship, just to touch these sacred objects, hoping for a miracle, a cure, or simply comfort. Rituals are not mere ceremony. They are vital acts of spiritual survival. Mass is the central act, the miraculous transubstantiation of bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ, a moment of profound connection to the divine. Prayer is your direct line to God, a desperate plea, a hopeful request, a confession of sin. Confession, though daunting, is crucial. A purging of the soul, a chance to reset the eternal ledger, a path back to grace after inevitable stumbles. The church itself is far more than just the stone building in the center of your village. It is the literal gateway to salvation, the authoritative source of truth in a confusing world, the interpreter of God's will. It is also a vast, powerful institution, a major landholder, involved in every aspect of life, from blessing the crops to settling disputes to recording births and deaths. Its authority is immense, its influence undeniable. Your faith, therefore, is not a private matter locked within your heart. It is a public performance, a shared understanding that binds the community together. It is the language you use to explain the inexplicable, the sudden famine, the rampant disease, the arbitrary misfortune that strikes one family and spares another. The pervasive nature of faith and superstition is the lens through which you understand the world. Without scientific knowledge to explain the complexities of nature or the human body, causality was often attributed to divine will, demonic influence, or magical forces, both good and ill. A bad harvest isn't just bad weather. It could be God's punishment for communal sin, or the work of a spiteful neighbor who cast a spell. This could be terrifying, fueling deep anxieties about sin, damnation, and the ever-present threat of evil. But it was also comforting, providing a sense of order and purpose in a chaotic world. It offered hope, the hope for divine intervention in this life, and the profound, overwhelming hope for an afterlife free from earthly suffering. Ask yourself, in a world where every shadow might hide a demon and every hardship might be a test from God, how would you navigate your days? Would you live in constant terror? Or would faith become your shield, your only true certainty? How would you discern between divine punishment, demonic attack, and simple, brutal bad luck? Would you cling to the rituals, no matter how demanding, no matter how seemingly ineffective, because the alternative, spiritual annihilation, was simply unthinkable? Was it faith that saved them from despair, or the sheer, grinding fear of what came after, driving them to cling to every promise of salvation? Reflection. We live in a world where science explains much, mapping the stars, understanding disease, predicting weather patterns. Yet, we still grapple with existential questions. Why are we here? What happens when we die? We fear the unknown. Artificial intelligence, climate change, economic collapse, threats that feel global and beyond individual control. And we still seek meaning, comfort, and certainty, sometimes turning to ideologies, self-help gurus, or scientific certainty, with a faith that mirrors religious fervor. Have we simply replaced religious faith with other forms of belief or certainty? Do our modern anxieties about the future or unseen threats echo the medieval fears of divine wrath or demonic forces, just in different guises? The fear is the same, perhaps, just the language has changed.